Welcome to Talk Art. My name is Susan Kraft, and I'm the Executive Director of SOLA, the Society of Local Artists of the Bay Area of San Francisco. And tonight we're going to speak with two individuals, Pamela Rosekrans and Terry Geyer. Terry Geyer is a portrait artist, and you see one of his pieces on the set tonight. And Pamela we're going to speak to first, and she has a very unusual story for Talk Art, that is. She's a very artistically minded woman who put together a beautiful shop to do a beautiful thing in the world. And so what I first want to do is ask her about the inspiration for the current work she has, which is a work in a shop in downtown Palo Alto called In Her Shoes. And can you tell us what first inspired you to put the shop together, and then tell us how you got that name?
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. I have been supporting an organization called Global Fund for Women for many years, and as my life is moving on, my children are leaving, and I'm about to become an empty nester, I thought it would be a good idea to do something in a bigger way for Global Fund for Women to bring more notoriety and get their organization out. And so I was presented with a book called In Her Hands, a book about how women create and make a living around the world with their hands, and I decided to do a store for Global Fund for Women called In Her Shoes.
Well, it's a beautiful idea. I love that. Now you've got that book. I've seen that book in your store, right?
Yes.
In Her Hands?
Yes.
And the book came out after the store was open, or?
The book came out before the store was open.
Okay.
Yes.
And there was another book that came out after the store was open.
Yes.
Okay, so I've seen these two books. And you also have a nice pamphlet, which we're going to talk about later, and that's about the Global Fund for Women, which is another amazing organization in itself. So I'm so glad you hooked into them, and I'm so glad you did this in the town I happen to live in, so I get to be part of this in a small way. And thank you for coming on tonight, as I said. So now your store, one would think a store like this would be a nonprofit because you give all your proceeds after operating expenses to the Global Fund for Women. But it's not a nonprofit because it's expensive to do. So it is called a not-for-profit?
Not-for-profit.
Okay. So tell us about a not-for-profit. How does it work for you?
All right. I chose to do it that way because the store, if you get a chance to come in, visit the store.
And where's the store?
It's 644 Emerson Street, Palo Alto.
Okay.
The store I decorated the store with all of my my own mirrors, my own furniture, and in order to do a nonprofit, everything that I put into the store would belong to the organization that I'm supporting.
We're looking at the, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but I want you to take a look at, or just know that this picture here, I'm going to show it to you here, this picture is up on the TV right now for our viewers. Can you tell us about that mirror? Where did you get that lovely mirror?
Yes, I purchased that mirror from an antique store down the street called The Parlor. And that's one of the many mirrors I have in the store.
And you can see all those shoes behind there. Now it's called In Her Shoes, so you can see the shoes in the mirror. And now I think eventually we're going to be looking at some other shots. Can we have next image, please? There we go. So now we have one more shot here in your store of some beautiful shoes. Now tell us about these shoes and what they mean to you and why they're in the store.
Well,
what should they mean to me? More importantly, I suppose, to your customers.
Well, I thought that it was I like the idea of doing a shoe store, calling it In Her Shoes, because in a way we're putting ourselves in other women's shoes by supporting them with the store around the world. And so that was the inspiration.
Now, tell us about these shoes, though. I mean, the shoes, you've got some really cool shoes in there. They're beautiful, gorgeous shoes. Now, there's another shot here of some fancy little black strappy things. And so tell us, now you've got some designer shoes in there. Where do they come from, and how do you pick them?
I attend shoe shows, and I haven't traveled outside of the U.S. yet to do the shopping or the choosing of the shoes, but I just basically pick what I would wear.
Oh, they're gorgeous. You've got very good taste.
Thank you.
We have one more shot of inside the building, and it's a view on a pedicure throne. And if we could have that image up, please. Oh, there it is. And this is that shot right there. And tell us about the pedicure throne. And you had an idea that you tried for the first year, and now it's become on call rather than all at any time.
Yes.
So
So we also offered pedicures and shoes, and the reason why we no longer offer pedicures during the day is it was not proving to be profitable, and that was the reason I opened the store, to be profitable for Global Fund for Women.
And so now you can have a pedicure
So
party.
now you can, yes, you can book a private pedicure party.
And that's the first time I came in. Actually, I saw your store, of course. I mean, it's really easy to see your store. But the first time I saw your store was for a pedicure party. And it was great. We had such a fun time, and it was a really interesting group of people that was brought together in your store. It was very inspirational. And the person who put it together was inspired to bring women that do specific things in the art world into your store. So right there I knew that this is the kind of store. It was very artsy and inspirational. So we are going to, I'd like to ask you one more thing about your store. We're done looking at your beautiful store. I'm sorry it's going away, but everyone should just come to your store. And I didn't ask them to put up the address, so you're going to have to tell us again. Your store is on Emerson between Lytton and Hamilton, right? Emerson?
No, it's on Emerson. It's in between Forest and Hamilton.
Forest and Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay, not Lytton. What am I saying? That's on the other side.
Yes.
Forest and Hamilton. And it's near, what's the big landmark around there?
It's across the street from Buca di Beppo.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the address again?
644 Emerson Street.
644 Emerson. Okay, thank you for that. Now, when you set up all those beautiful things in your store, you said that some of the things came from your own home, and some of them came from various places like
the Parlor, which was down the street, an antique store, and also Richard Sumner Gallery.
Oh, okay. That's where the R21 took over. Yeah.
And so some of his pieces, Mahmoud's pieces. And
Oh, good. Oh, right next door to you, or
Yes.
close to you. Now, I also wanted to ask you about the cost. So you said that you raised how much? 35?
I've given $35,000 to Global Fund
in
for Women
10 months.
in the first year, in
In the
12
first
months.
year.
Yes.
Amazing. That's great.
Yes.
That's just wonderful. The historical lead up to this point is that you built this store, you're giving money to the Global Fund for Women, and you were inspired by wanting to give to the world in something that was inspirational to you and know there was a need out there. And the book in her hands was just for the name. It wasn't really inspirational to you, you said?
I was inspired by I was inspired by the book, by it being a gift to me by the Global Fund for Women, and because I'd given a large party in there to let my neighbors in my neighborhood know who they were. And they gave me a book, gifted me a book, and that inspired me to do something beyond.
And you brought a purse and a pair of shoes in. Now, I think if we have some images of these pieces you have right here. So tell us about this purse. There's a little phrase on the back of this purse as well.
Yes, it's a purse that has a...
What is the phrase? Can you read the phrase for me, please?
Yes. The earth laughs in flowers. It's a Ralph Waldo Emerson.
The earth laughs in flowers.
Yes.
Oh, what a beautiful phrase. And then you also have a pair, and they're showing us the nice phrase. And then you have a pair of beautiful pumps. Is that what they're called, pumps? I'm not really a shoe person. I love shoes, but I don't really, you know.
Heels.
Heels,
Yeah.
just heels. What are pumps? What's the difference between heels and pumps?
Pumps are lower, heels are higher.
Oh, we think pumps would be, you know, pumping. I have no idea. Okay, so heels. You have a beautiful pair of suede heels down there. No. Think it'd pump you up. I don't know. You know, I'm an artist. I'm a scientist. I don't, you know. People give me shoes. I go out buy them when they need to. I look at the color. Anyway, so you have a beautiful pair of heels with you as well. And here they are. And can you tell us about these shoes in particular?
Yes, they're these shoes are suede, multicolored suede, and they're manufactured by Oh Dear. That's the name of the...
Oh dear.
Oh Dear.
Oh, cute.
Yes.
And now you have a shoe. Some of your shoes have phrases inside of them. So you have phrases on the purse, and you have phrases on your shoes as well, inside the shoes as well.
Some of them, yes.
And we have an image of one that has a phrase inside of it as well. Can you tell us about that particular shoe?
Yes, it's a shoe that is made by John Fluvog, and the saying inside is, "Your love makes me sing."
Your love makes me sing. Can we have that image, please? There it is. Oh, look at this. There you are holding the shoe. And it's a beautiful red shoe. Your love makes me sing. Now that's talking about in her shoes, right?
Yes.
I mean, you've got inspiration in her shoes and walking in her shoes, and you're helping the women of the world with this store. It's just a wonderful story. So what's next for you?
Well, what's next is I have an idea about coming out with a book called In Her Kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that will be once my the fourth child, will be moving on, and I will have an empty nest altogether. And I thought I'd travel the world, collect recipes from women all over the world and pictures of them cooking in their kitchen, and put together this book that will also benefit Global Fund for Women.
Well, that's great. Now you have a pamphlet here from Global Fund for Women.
I do.
And we have an image that I'd like to show that as well. Inside there it is. It says, "We fund freedom for women and girls," and that's on the first page of your pamphlet, the Global Fund for Women. And you have these pamphlets in your store. If you could just show the camera the outside of the book, so they can see it when they come in the outside. So when people come into your store, they can recognize this beautiful, just turn it this way, there you go, this beautiful pumpkin-colored pamphlet. And tell us about this pamphlet. What do people get from this pamphlet when they pick it up?
Well, it lets you know what the work that Global Fund for Women does around the world, and that it's a nonprofit grant-making organization that supports women and girls in humanitarian organizations around the world.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this for our community, for the world, and for the women of the world. And thank you for coming on our show of Talk Art.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And so next we're going to speak with Terry Geyer. So Terry, one of the things that I found interesting about having you with Pamela is that both of you are doing something for the history of tomorrow. So she's looking towards a better world for tomorrow, and you are doing two things that I think is interesting historically speaking. You're using historically important styles of painting, the old masters styles, and you've just been commissioned to paint a very important piece of art for this community, again for this community. Tell us about the society and this story.
It's a series of paintings for the Silicon Valley Luminary Society. This was set up by a retired patent attorney, and he really loves art, and he feels that he wants to be an inspiration to young potential inventors. And the society was set up originally to produce a series of paintings showing the inventors of the valley and how old they were when they actually made their invention and their invention. The first painting was painted by a local gentleman. It was a very huge painting in 3 panels, 6 foot. I'm sorry, it was each panel was 6 foot by 9 foot, 3 panels.
6 foot tall by 9 foot wide?
It's 9 feet tall by 6 foot wide, and they were put together. There were 3 panels, and so it's 18 feet wide by 9 feet tall.
And so that's the first installation into the museum that has yet to be created.
Yes.
Okay.
This painting included 14 major inventors prior to World War II that were in the valley. Like Farnsworth invented the television, the Packards, of course, and several other inventors. The valley's got such a rich history of inventors.
It certainly does. It certainly does.
It's just amazing. And that gentleman, his health isn't good enough to take on this bigger projects anymore. So in pieces, which right now we've clarified there's 7 of them with 5 inventors each.
7 paintings, 5 inventors. Okay.
So that's like 35.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people to paint. You have. Let's talk a little bit about your what you're doing. Your style is you're using the old style of the masters. And when you first to learn this, you had to first copy the masters, like the piece you have here in the studio, and you also learned the classical style of painting. So not only the imagery, but there's a particular style that you have to use in order for this to work properly with the luminescence of the skin tones and things like this.
Yes.
Now we have some images in the studio to show our viewers on how you started this. So if you could roll those, what are the children?
The Kalmati children.
The Kalmati children.
Yeah.
And here we go. If you take a look here, we have the Kalmati children. Now first it's the drawings, right?
Right.
Drawings, are they in, is this ink?
Yeah, what it is that the drawings are done. The classical painting method was separated everything into stages. So you solve one problem at a time. The drawing, then the tonal qualities, and you work it up into the grays, and then
with the black and white one.
So the first one is the drawing, and I'm starting to do the inking. Now the ink, what you do is you put the drawing down, and then once you've got that correct, you ink around the major lines. So then the second piece shows an imprimatura, which is
Imprimatura. Okay.
which is a thin coat of
Looks like a lot of blue,
brown.
blue and brown.
Yeah, I took some liberties, and being I was just learning this, I didn't make the light tones light enough, so I did add some white back into it.
Okay. Well, don't tell on yourself here, because nobody knows better than you. So just like, oh, they went to the next version already. Okay. So now you're gonna have to skip that one. All right, we're moving into this next photo here.
Okay. So the ink lines show through, so that you always have the drawing.
Okay.
If you make an error or something, you can wipe down the area you're working on, and that under area will show again.
Okay, now these are all in oil, of course. When you say thin,
Yes.
so you thin it with, for people that are not familiar with oil paint, you've got, everyone knows about turpentine, and they know about oil, and they know about the paint itself.
Yeah,
So now there's
turpentine,
mediums too, right? And that's kind of a mixture of stuff.
Yeah. Now, in the early stages, you work with primarily turpentine and just a little bit of varnish. What this makes is sort of a watercolor situation, so that you thin an umber paint to almost a watercolor texture, and where it has to be lighter, it's more thin, and where it's darker, using more pigment. And then so you work it up as a sort of a watercolor underneath. And then after you've got all the tones roughed in, then you actually paint it in. This could be, you'll go over it and let it dry maybe 2-3 times.
Okay.
And then
Now, we're going to talk about the next one. Can we have the third photo up? There it is. So now we've got this. What's this one called? This
okay, that's called the dead layer or the
layer.
grisaille. In other words, that's a completely finishing the painting, all the detail, or for primary, most of the detail, all in grays.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Okay. So we just saw 4 images first, the black and white, then there's the umber color and so on, and then finally just the one you were talking about where you're wiping things down, you're adding more other tones to it. Then you go back, and here we're looking at it on the screen here. You gray it all out again. Now,
Yeah, what you do is you use that base.
Very counterintuitive.
You've pretty much defined the tonal qualities in the umber layers, but it's still very rough. Well, from that, you're guiding off those umber layers, and you're matching those tones in grays, and now you're pretty much painting the painting in gray.
Interesting. So those other tones, then they're actually coming through. Maybe you don't see them as well in the photos on the TV because it's not very high quality.
Yes, you do get a little bit of that through, but for the most part, the light tones of gray are obliterating the browns pretty much. This is the part where you're really refining the tonal quality and the drawing. Now you've got your drawing solved, you've got your tonal quality solved, now it's time to go to color.
Okay,
That's
so
the
now this
next
last one here we're going to put up here, which is actually the painting behind you, but also we've got a nice image we can put there. It's up on the TV right now, and it's so beautiful. It's just so counterintuitive to think, all right, I can see the drawing, I can see putting some minor colors down, and then you bring it up a little more to life, and then you make it all dead again. It's just the most unusual, counterintuitive, but it just works so stupendously well.
Because if you try to make all the refinements and changes and stuff in the color will look overworked and harsh, and you lose the color tones, and while you're fumbling around trying to get it right. You can do all that fumbling around in the tonal qualities, and when you put the color on, the color's fresh, it's translucent. You're getting tones from underneath. If it's thinner, you're getting the cool tones from the gray coming out, and that's giving that pearlescent quality that you'll see in museums.
And and you do indeed. And do you use what's it called, the steel wool? And do you smooth it down with steel wool so it stays a little smooth? I was taught one time I was taught by an old master style who came out of Russia, and he had me scrubbing everything down with steel wool in between layers.
The way I learned was instead, rather than steel wool, would be to use like a razor blade. And you sort of round the corners of it so that it doesn't mar the canvas, but that never worked really well for me. I found that I ended up marring the canvas with the corners, so I just got to handle a razor blade very.
And you'd actually cut the thick paint off.
I didn't use that with this one, but the next one I did, which was a Da Vinci copy, on a panel
Okay.
on
I don't
wood.
know if we have time to look at the Da Vinci painting too, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about
I
the
scraped
Silicon
that one
Valley Luminary Society. Let's just put it up really quickly. If we could have those images up, here you go. We're going to
Yeah.
go through this rather quickly. What we've got is the drawing and the what's this
The
one called?
imprimatura. This one's a little clearer because
Okay.
I had the system down better.
Okay. And then the next one is going to be we're going to
the
just
umber layers.
Hold on, here it goes. Okay,
Sorry.
umber layer is the third one,
And then the gray,
there's
the dead
gray
layer.
again. Amazing. Okay, and then the final
the
picture.
final,
Look at that.
that's-
I mean, can you
that's-
imagine? This is not Da Vinci. This is a man right here from the Palo Alto region. It's great. How lucky are we to have somebody like you
Thank
to
you.
paint the inventors of Silicon Valley who are from a
Yes.
young age, and you don't have them because they're no longer young. They're not even some of them
No,
alive.
I have been lucky enough to meet a couple of the inventors
But you
that
don't-
are
they
still
don't-
alive, and they have
But
fascinating
it's, I
stories.
know how important it is to have good material to paint from.
Exactly.
And since you have been practiced at painting from, not from life, and you do a fine, fine job. So we're very lucky to have you do this for this community and for in general.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about this Silicon Valley Luminary Society? There, with respect, the commissions with respect to the technical aspects. I know you told us about how you do this, starting from the black and white all the way through the dead zone and so on. But what about making so many so large, because you don't want those things to wobble around or get
Right.
loose? So what else do you have to worry about?
Because they're so large, you do have to be very careful about how
Mm-hmm.
it's constructed. I mean, it's a direct painting method. You're painting it all at one time, and the layer is like one layer on top of the surface,
Mm-hmm.
and that's got more integrity. But if you do use a Flemish or a master style like this, where it's multiple layers, you have to be careful about how it builds up, that it builds up correctly.
Let's talk about that a little bit. We've got actually we've got another 5 minutes to go, so let's talk about the different. You called it a Flemish style.
Yeah, it's a. This is based on the Flemish style. There are a couple of variations, the Flemish and the Italian. There's Italian styles, the Venetians, and I'm kind of using a hybrid of all of them, and,
Okay.
and then
Sure,
with
why
some
not? You're
with
in
some
modern
changes.
times.
I've been doing this for a long time, so you know, I deviated from a direct path, but it works for me. So I want to make sure that these are constructed well. They will end up in a museum. The next stage for the Luminary Society is to help raise is raise funds for a history museum in this area and to capture this great history in the Silicon Valley.
Now, how are you going to be raising funds? You're going
I
to
don't. I'm not doing it.
But the paintings.
The Silicon Valley Luminary Society.
Now,
is doing it.
all right, let's go
sorry.
back, since we're bringing them up again. Now, I'd never heard of them before, and I've lived here for a long time.
Right.
So, when I asked you the first time, you thought I was wondering about how do I get to paint for them. No, I wanted to know who are these and how do you get into it. Not that I'm a luminary of Silicon Valley. I thought I would know somebody that would be in it because I know people that have had some big moves. And it
It's a
turns
very
out
small group. Yeah, and
you wouldn't believe how small. You'd think that some of your friends would be in it, right? Because you've lived here for a long time too. No. It's what, 3 people?
no, it
Really?
was 3 people, but the vice president died. There are some very elderly men that have this, and so.
But it's a
because
very,
the
it's
first
a very, very small group with a very, very tight focus of what they're doing and why they're doing it. They've got a,
Yeah, they have
one
very,
issue, one reason why they're together, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is it, those
Yeah,
paintings in the
very-
museum.
He finds a very strong purpose in
Mm-hmm.
creating these paintings and you know, helping to inspire young people to also become inventors.
Well, it's a great story. I think there should be some press on this. You know, there should be some, you know,
There will.
on that in particular. But even maybe they don't need it. Maybe they don't want it.
No, they will. What happened was the first painting took quite a long time because it was so huge.
Yeah.
And then we had the internet bust, and so everything got put on hold for a few years. And because they were able to find me, and I was really excited about doing the project. And it's all been revived, and this is just happened at pretty much just before the first of the year, so we're
I remember when you walked into Sola and said, "Hey, guess what?" It's like, what? It was pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I thought it was
So,
unbelievable too.
Yeah, but it's just as wonderful, and I'm so glad that you'd already signed up for the show, I think, by that point, so it was perfect timing. So, so these few individuals, and you said they're quite elderly. The other thing you told me is that you were very happy to meet somebody of their stature and of their age that have such energy, drive, and focus, because it gave you, you were very happy to meet somebody like that. Evidently,
Oh
hadn't
yeah,
met
and
men like that before.
over the last few weeks, I've met more 80-year-old PhDs than
With a lot of life and
Yeah.
focus and drive.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're so now I say I have a lot of years ahead of me.
Well, yeah, that's very inspiring. So they're inspiring people in many ways,
Yes.
and they probably don't even realize it. That
Yeah,
just
they have a strong
being-
sense of purpose, and they're they all work towards their sense of purpose, and it's really good to see.
You know, we've got a few more minutes today. Since we ran through the Da Vinci painting of the ermine, let's look at that a little bit. Do you want to talk about it? Because it's
Yeah,
a pretty
sure.
cool image, and Da Vinci's, that was an unusual painting anyway. So because nobody had used an ermine in a painting before,
Right.
and it's because her name was something like ermine.
Celia, I can't
In
remember.
Latin or
Yeah.
in Italian or
it's
something.
exactly.
So can we have the pictures of the ermine painting? Maybe the last two that you put up?
Yeah, I'd already done the Kalmati children,
listening to
and
Hello.
and this painting came to the Palace of Legion of Honor with the Polish
right.
show, and I
Yeah.
went to see the painting because you hardly ever see a Da Vinci in this country. There's only a couple of them, and
Yeah.
I looked at it and I went,
He didn't paint that many. For as famous as he is, he didn't paint that many. He drew a lot.
I think there was
he
only
painted
like
large
4 or
pieces.
5 paintings of portraits that he did of people, other than of course the
Yeah.
Last Supper, which was on a wall.
Which is being destroyed because he did something different. So
Right.
he was experimenting. So.
So I looked at it and go, I thought I challenged myself with the Kalmati children, which was a Lawrence painting.
Yeah.
I looked at this painting and I go, you know what? I'd like to have that painting. I said, and
So you
this
just
will
did
be
it.
one that will really
Yeah.
prove whether I can do it or not.
And indeed you
I
did.
decided to do that.
You've won with Sola shows with this as well. So, well, tonight we had a wonderful, wonderful discussion with 2 people from Palo Alto area. And I hope that everybody has learned incredible things that you can do in your own community to help your society out yourself. And it doesn't take much. It just takes an idea and then the gumption to get out and go do it and find something to do it, somebody to do it with. So thank you for coming, and thank you for watching Sola's Talk Art. Again, my name is Susan Kraft, and tonight's guests were in reverse order: Terry Geiger and Pamela Rosekrans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, people. Here we go.